let's talk about our project that we're going to be working on today. So you may have caught something that I just said. Okay, so introduction to the project we're going to be working on. The thing that you may have noticed that I just said is that we are working on one of our chatbots. I said one of. And the reason why is that we have a chatbot that is the one that we built specifically for this channel. It has games and other fun activities that people here built together and we play with. And they're kind of fun. We've built some interesting stuff with that. That's all written in C# and is custom C# code, and it was written for this stream. It has fun overlay stuff that does all kinds of interesting stuff, like that, for example, is one of the commands that is in our bot, and variety of other things that we've done. Additionally, I also have a bot that runs these colors. So if you see the colors that are bouncing around, that are jumping around the screen, these little bits of red here, I can type yellow into the chat. It's always watching, and it just immediately changes the color to yellow. I could change it to, any color I can think of, and as long as it's a color name it knows about, it will change to that color name when it notices. I could also, thank you, Grumpy Game Dev, for chiming in with the fact, well, also doing, basically black, but you can do hex codes, and it figures those out as well. So we built that as a separate bot for a couple of reasons. First off, I wanted to demonstrate how to build a simple system tray only application that could connect in and do something really useful. So that's actually a chatbot that runs only in your system tray. There's no other window for it. So it's essentially like you just run it. It goes down there so you can kill it whenever you want easily as a user, but it runs one thing. So it's essentially like a simple background bot almost. And I use it for color switching. Because all it does is just watches chat and just sends messages to the overlay letting it know what color was selected. So if you want to build something, you can actually just go grab that bot, throw it in, and you can do color switching for whatever you want. It doesn't have to be this animation that I'm using here. It could be anything that you want that in HTML you could just adjust the colors with. Oh, very nice, Grumpy Game Dev. Hopefully that kata goes well. I'm planning on continuing our work on ours as well, but I wanted to get this project far enough along first. Okay, so I have a couple of bots. I also run a third bot sometimes. And I kind of sit there and go, okay, I know some other streamers that run 2 or 3 bots. Including some of those bots don't get a lot of new feature development or anything like that. So I was kind of like, well, we need an open source bot that is driven by the community, that the intention is not for the bot to just have a bunch of features. Because we could build a bot that just has a lot of features and say, here everyone, here's the bot, and hopefully you like the features that it has. But that's not the route that I want to go. What I would rather do is make this bot. So this bot is intended to be highly modular. And the way that we're going to do that is, so this is a placeholder right now, this plugin screen, just so we could see, some concept of that there was going to be a plugin screen. We're going to start wiring some of these up today, not just the screen, but also the plugins themselves. That is what our goal is. And so the intention here is that each one of so any given feature that might exist in this chatbot will be implemented, even for our core ones, as a plugin, module, whatever you want to call it, as a custom script. So right now we have a tab here for simple commands. And if I log in, so if I just go ahead and click connect, this will authenticate that bot. It says hello over in the chat. You'll see it says, hey everyone, I'm a bot connected via TwitchLib. It said it with my account because I've got this one connected to my account, so you can tell it apart from our other chatbots which connect with the DevChatter bot account. So when this one connects in, it says, hey, I'm connected via TwitchLib, and we can now do things like type in ping, and it'll respond with Pong. We can say TED, and it will say C# loves Java. We could do SO, and SO is not wired up yet, so you'll notice it still does the wrong thing. That is weird that saying an SO without that went to Matt the dev. I am really confused by that. That's really confusing and weird. I am super confused by that one. Well, the Guy Royce one's fine. I don't know why Matt the dev is selected. That's an error in the other bot. That's not this one. So you'll notice the two accounts responded, and ours is not respecting that. So the reason why is that that's not a completed plugin. That's the beginnings of that plugin. But before we complete the plugin, I want to go ahead and make it a plugin. So I also love watching Arg1's stream. Arg1, it's a pirate stream. No, the okay, so keep in mind that, you know, we could also say YouTube and it will chime in with YouTube twice, once from me and once from the other bot. No, they don't program in Arg, because their first love be the sea. Yes, Yes, yep. We made terrible pirate jokes on the channel. It's bad. That's and by bad I mean you're welcome, Guy. I thought that would cheer you up. And you were worried the stream would be silly. No, we've talked about ARGs, the R programming language, and C. This is C# though. It's a totally different thing. This one we can make glasses humor about. Why do I like programming in C#? Because it's not JavaScript, and so doesn't have like confusing this keyword. That's why I like programming in C#. Yeah, I don't know. I had to come up with something. Yes, crickets. Thank you. I'll be here all week. All right, so let's close that bot. I just wanted to have it up there as an example to sort of explain what it was. And now let's dive into a bit of code. Okay, so plugins. So there's a couple of things that have to happen with plugins. So in the last stream, what we were working on was taking our simple commands and pulling it out into a library of its own. So it is its own class library now. I yanked that out. I completed that off stream, the like pulling it out into its separate library. You'll notice it was in there. We could run it and everything seemed to be working. I changed a couple of things with how our bindings work. If you are interested in seeing that, feel free to take a look at our GitHub repository so you can see the current structure. I linked that in the chat. It's also down below. With those in place, though, it's still not a module, and I'm going to explain why. Or it's not a plugin. It's not a plugin, it's not a module, whatever you want to call it. And the reason for that is that if I go take a look at the UI project, and I open up the dependencies, and I have a look at the project dependencies, you'll see that it has a reference to the simple commands library. So this library is being referenced directly. So that means at compile time, it knew it existed. So when we register this, I'll show you how we get it started. So the beginning of this application, because it's WPF, comes in at the app XAML CS file. And in here, we get down to on startup. And at startup, we have already done our dependency registration and everything like that. So our service provider has all of the types that are registered in there. So what does that mean? That means a couple of things. First off, it means that it has a collection of plugins, because I told it to register all of the plugins already. And if I take a look at the startup, you will see that. It's right here. So inside of startup, I said add simple commands plugin. And when I look at this, it registered our simple commands plugin as an iPlugin. So because it did this already, that means that when I ask for all of the plugins right here, it comes back with a collection of plugins. If I had not registered any, this would come back as an empty collection and we would skip over this for each and move on. What I've done here is I've basically said, grab all the ones that have been registered already and initialize them. This is not going to be here in the long run. This cannot happen because we will not have compile time references to it. So instead, what we're going to have to do is load these at runtime. That means that this line of code right here does not get to happen. We cannot just wire in to the dependency, the service collection of this container. We can't do it because the container has already been created. We have a couple of options. We can either use a container, an IOC container, that allows us to add additional items after it has been registered. That is absolutely a possibility. There are a few IOC containers that allow it, that don't have like a build process. Thank you, Icy Bird. Grumpy gave him no. We're not gonna like if def or anything like that. And thank you very much for the follow as well. Welcome to the stream. So if we go this route, we either have to do that, or what we have to do is accept that our types that we create will not be in the main IOC container of the application. And that's okay if we are building it such that applications don't need to pull in dependencies from each other indirectly. So if we instead define that they need direct access to each other, that's a separate story. Okay, so let's talk about these. So the first thing I want to do is not get the like dynamic loading, because there are some other steps we can do first. So let's jump over to that. So I started a little bit of code as a reminder to myself of what we wanted to do on stream. So I created an iMessage handler set and a message handler set. Why did I name those files the same thing? No, that one's okay. I just misread it. Okay. So this is what I created. So for most of the plugins that we're going to create for the bot, the scenario is this. The chat bot is going to watch chat. It's going to see a message. It's going to see a message that says something along the lines of, for example, hello. When hello comes in, that message should get sent to every one of the plugins that has registered that it wants to be able to see essentially chat. And the way that it does that in our model is we're going to create an interface called iMessage Handler. If your module implements iMessage Handler and registers it with the message handler set, then that is a way of your app telling us, hey, I want to listen to that. Please let me listen to that. So basically you register, hey, I want chat messages. And you just give it your handler and it will say, okay, whenever I receive a message, I will tell you about this. Most complicated architecture? No. This is a very simple one, and we're staying simple for a variety of reasons. One of those reasons is that we want to support more than just C#. We want to be able to support C# or Python or JavaScript or whatever language it is that you want to write this plugin using. So for now, our starting one is C#. Probably our second one will be Python, but C# for now, which means I want to take a nice simple approach where it's just you register to be able to receive messages. If you've registered to receive messages, you'll get them. If for some reason someone wants to build a plugin that does not listen to chat and does something else, sure, why not? We can support plugins that don't need to listen to chat because maybe their feature is related to something else. I don't know. Okay. Also, welcome Unicorn Dev and Renee. Hello, hello, greetings. And anyone else who's lurking in chat, hello, welcome to the stream. Okay, so in order to make this work, what we have to do is so essentially, the message handler set is kind of like the current state of the application. The reason why it exists is that we need to be able to initialize it from the beginning so that it is a collection that we can alter over time. So we need so something in the application needs to have a collection. We want other things to be able to access it without knowing what they're accessing. So we have a chatbot type. So there is a Twitch bot, and it is going to have these message handlers, but we don't want all the plugins to have access to the chatbot. For obvious reasons, we don't want them to have access to the chatbot. That would be just rife with danger for someone tweaks something, messes with something like that. So Voight has asked a fantastic question. What if more than one plugin wants to react to a specific command? I have not made a decision on what we want to do about that yet, Voight, but there are a couple of possible things that we can do. We can either build in the ability for a plugin to alter the message as it's going through the application, at which point you could build it so that plugins were making modifications to messages that would affect other plugins coming later. So if you had handled part of a message, for example, you could remove that. So if your messaging system involved like filter adjustments and things like that, you could potentially do that. So there are solutions where that would be an answer. Additionally, I think we may get into a point where we want to allow a plugin to alter the outgoing messages in some capacity as well. And if we go that route as well, then we're going to end up with the same concept where a message might get intercepted by more than one plugin and have it get altered on its way out. So incoming and outgoing messages are both potential to get, changed as things work, depending on how we want to structure it. Alternately, what we can do is we can say, you order the plugins and first one to, accept or do something with it is the one that wins. Okay, welcome Death by Code and welcome, is that Lark Do, Lark D0, or Lark Do? Either way, let me know and I'll try to say whatever it is that you want to go by, but welcome to the stream. Thanks for those follows. So it was a fantastic question, Voight. I don't have a great answer for what we want to do on that. You'd also need to order the plugins for such... yes, exactly, yes. That is precisely correct, Grumpy Game Dev. If you are doing that, regardless of what you're going to need... So, if you allow multiples, or even if you don't, you need to be able to define the priority that the applications get in accepting that stuff. I am confused why it did not read yellow and make the color yellow. Red's fine. Okay, so that's the basic concept, is we're going to need to wire in and register these. And we may automate that in some capacity, I don't know yet. But let's go ahead. Okay, so the methods that we needed for that are, we need some way of initializing the collection. So this is, when it's initially loaded, it needs to receive the data set that is going to make it function. and then you'll register and unregister, which we could do unregister or deregister. I did unregister because it seemed fine. The handlers when you enable and disable a plugin. So if someone clicks the disable button, we need to unregister. If they click the enable button, we need to register it. If we loaded it from the database with its information, it says it's supposed to be loaded. At the time that we do that, we're going to automatically register any of the ones that are supposed to be turned on by default. So why not have the iMessage handler announce which commands it responds to? So the challenge there, Voight, is that when you do that, you have to start defining commands. And that does not work well for a plugin style approach, because the plugins themselves can define any command they want. So if they would want to do that, they would have to define their commands in the structure that we wanted, whereas we want it to be a little bit more open. So while we respond usually to commands that start with an exclamation point, you could make it so that one of your plugins responded to commands that started with a % or an ampersand or a caret or whatever. The point being that we don't want to limit them into a certain structure for how a command works. So that's kind of the reason why. So even our simple carrots. I meant like that kind of carrot. But the so that's the idea. Now keep in mind that the approach I'm taking, by the way, with making simple commands be a plugin, we are establishing right off the bat that even the core functionality of our bot, like, because basic commands is pretty darn core to an application like this, we're saying that's a plugin. So if someone doesn't like the way that we built our basic command structure, they can replace it with their own plugin. So if there is a different commands plugin that someone wants to use instead, they can use that. So if someone makes a competing one that works better for, like, let's say that someone builds one that is really good at dealing with multilingual streams and has the ability to handle that commands could be in one or more languages and still respond the same way, but that's probably not a feature that you want to have like built in by default. Someone might make a separate commands plugin that focuses on that, and they could just then wire it into this. You get all the rest of the features of the bot, but for all your simple commands, you can make it so that someone typed in like I don't know, shout out, but I don't know what shout out is. Like, that's such an obscure case that I don't actually know what that is what that would be in another language. But maybe someone wants like shout out to work, regardless of the language you used. Okay, I guess you could, and define it as specific commands, not like do an auto translate thing, because that's really dangerous for command words. But and by dangerous I mean it's gonna false positive trigger all the time. Need to enforce the consumer of this is iDisposable and provide a base class implementation that unsubscribes it in the finalizer. Yes, Simon, we probably should use an iDisposable on the plugin itself. Make the bot auto-translate chat messages. No, Renee, we're not doing that. That translation is so ridiculously complicated. We have all seen butchered translations. Someone set up us the bomb. We get signal. Main screen turn on. I think that's probably about all I can get away with saying before they start yelling at me about, like, some kind of intellectual property something or other. Okay, so let's test the message handler set and just make sure that it works correctly. I don't think that there's not going to be much to this, but why not? So we'll do some quick tests of this, and we'll do a folder for state and folder for message handler tests. I don't know. We can restructure these if we decide we want to change at some point. Actually, I don't think there's going to be enough tests to merit a whole folder for that. So let's just make message handler set unit tests. That's fine. We'll make a fact, and that fact is going to be a public void do something. And we need to get a message handler set. This. It's a handler set. Hey, Sunamods, welcome, greetings. It'd be fun. What? Yeah, exactly, Guy. Nothing would ever go wrong if we did that. Yes, no one has ever seen a bad translation before. Never. Okay, so when we get that, first thing that we need to do is we'll initialize it. So let's make sure that when it initializes, it gets the data and is the same collection. So let's make sure the collection doesn't change. That's the way to phrase it. We're going to make sure the collection doesn't change. So does not change collection. I'm going to make that a should on that. Does not change collection after initialize. NDR, welcome. Greetings. Thanks for that follow. You've come bearing a question. Currently trying to make an extension for your Stream Deck. It requires an API that I don't know. I have not dug into the API for Stream Deck, but we might have someone that knows it. Have a good one, Grumpy Game Dev, and good luck. Okay, so this is the original. So that will maintain a reference to the original collection right here. And what I need to do now is say that the handler set handlers should be same as? Yes. Same as original. So, key point here. And that is, in C#, when you have a class, that by default is just a reference type, and equality on that class, if you have not defined it, is going to be referential equality. What that means is the two objects are really just pointers. So the variables that you have in the code, like in your method, are pointers to a location in memory. Referential equality is really just checking, is that a pointer to the same address? And if so, then it's the same object. If you didn't define equality. So this should guarantee that this object is the same as that one, and that they're pointing to the same place. Because of the fact that classes by default in this are going to point to the same location, it should be fine to just do should be this one, because it's going to do referential equality. But just to keep us safe from someone defining how equality works for these, we're going to do be same as. But let me check. Make sure chat's not yelling. Twitch API to pull viewer sub status. If you need it, there is a code analysis pragma for having in test class names available in the other tests. Yes, yeah, Simon is correct. So Fritz has actually done a bunch of Stream Deck programming at some point that you can dig into. What was the... I have a... to pull viewer substatus? Did someone ask that question and I missed it somewhere? Did I miss a question? I don't know how people got on the topic of substatus. Oh, okay. Oh, okay. I understand now, Sunamods. Yes. Got it. This makes sense now. So you were trying to figure out how to get the substatus. So if you're just wondering about the Twitch API, what do you want to know about substatus? That's totally on the Twitch API. If you go check out the Twitch Dev API, actually we want docs, new Twitch API, you can go and look up for any given thing that you want to reference in that API, exactly what it is you want to find out. So, is that the only one for subscriptions? That may be the only one for subscriptions. Get all of someone's subscriptions. That's not the users. Subscriptions. There is one for that, but I don't remember where it is. Might be on users. Might be on users. Greetings, body. Yes, it is Friday Eve. Okay, so let's see if this test passes. Does not change the collection after initialize. Did I leave my throw not implemented exception in there? We're about to find out. Not implemented exception. Okay, good. It fails for the right reason. Okay, so if we have it do nothing, that should be the fastest way to make the test pass. And then we'll make a quick test that makes sure that it not only didn't change the collection, but it added items to it. Okay. So it doesn't change it. That's good. Whoops. Duplicate. Adds handlers. From initialize. Using initialize. Maybe given in initialize. That's a adds all. So should add all handlers given in initialize. Okay. So let's do this. What's a handler I want to have in here? No problem, White Rabbit. I'm glad to assist. Did I not make an iMessage handler implementation? I thought I did. There it is. This may not be referenced in the unit tests project, although I thought it was. Nope. Oh, I bet it's internal. TNT, I'm guessing. Welcome. Thanks for that follow. Much appreciated. Welcome to the stream. Yep, that's internal. I guess I could just mock one. I could just make one. It doesn't really matter. Did we ever add the mock dependency to this? We don't have one yet. Yeah, exactly, Renee. We have not added our mocking framework yet. So I guess that means we have not decided on one. It's a good question. Yeah, exactly. I'm just going to mock it because we don't need anything more. What are we going to... Which one are we going to pick? I guess I will stay standard with what we have done up to this point on the stream, which is just grab MOQ. That's the point of it being internal. Yes, exactly, so that we can't access it places. The thing is, I didn't care about which one it is. I just want an instance. Just wanted, and I was like, "Ooh, should I make a fake one?" Yes, I know. I'm not doing anything with it though. But it's true. That is why we do that. That's why I draw the lines that I do. Mock iMessage handler dot object. Which there's actually a way to do like a nothing mock. Is this the one that is just already the type? Yeah, there we go. We're not going to do anything with it. It's just immediately one. Yes. Okay, there we go. Actually, if I created this, I could just check that the single item is in it. Okay, so handlers dot single. Let's say contain single. And that single one should be you know what? I'm just going to do this. Handlers single. So we're just going to say that object should be that one. Although I guess I could say handlers dot single should be same as. So we'll do this because that will also do the same check. Should be same as handlers dot single. So it should be one item in it. Should be the same one as that one. And that's when we initialize with this. This one we don't need to know what the original collection was because we tested that in our other one. Whoops. Okay. Yeah, that'll work fine. Yeah, that should create one, and essentially I haven't set it up, but yes, exactly. That is correct, Simon. It should just be. It's kind of like a default that is just an instance of it that's just totally uninitialized, isn't responding to anything. I don't even remember if you can do anything with these. So I guess this is how you add the behavior. And I don't know. I don't remember. It's been a while since I've actually dug into how those actually work in the library. I just remember that it's a thing. So that test should fail. Good, it did, because we got a contains no elements. You'll remember we didn't actually wire it up yet. All we did was leave it blank. So now we have to say handlers dot add range of the message handlers. Now when we run this, it should suddenly pass. Better to hold a reference to .object externally and pass it into the collection and then compare us. Yeah, so Simon, with this, because we only maintain we only ever have the object with this approach. So there is no mocked version of it. So we should be able to check this, and it should be fine. I just want to make sure, because we know the collection's the same, and then we're checking to make sure that the items inside are the same object. I could technically maintain a separate reference to this, but at that point you're worried that we modified this collection, which technically could happen, but I think that that's unlikely in our test to be a problem. So I guess I could do it this way, actually. So if I just say that that's the handler, instead of doing a single in here, I could just say that it's the handler, and then if we're going to do that, then I don't need to maintain any of this, and I could just say put this inside of the initialize, right like that. And then that works fine too. Did initialize take in a list or is it enumerable? It's an enumerable. So technically I could do that if I wanted also, which is a little nicer. So there we go. Okay. So yeah, that is a little cleaner. It was a good suggestion. And I'm going to change this convention and call that should. Should not change collection, and should add all handles given and initialize. There we go. Okay. So the next step is add handler on register, and then we'll do remove on remove. So we're expecting that it has always been initialized. Helpful stranger, greetings, welcome. What is Twitch Prime? Twitch Prime is gaming prime gaming prime. So, something like that makes those of us that stream on Twitch and are not gamers rather annoyed, because Twitch has renamed it with gaming in the name, after there are a whole bunch of creators on Twitch who are not gaming. It's Prime yeah, exactly, Prime Gaming. Isn't that what I said? I think that's what I said. It's really annoying because it's like, dude, you were finally getting that there are creators on Twitch that are not doing gaming stuff. And now they're like, oh, Prime Gaming. Yeah, sweet. Thanks, Twitch. Way to second-class citizens everyone again. Alright, so I want to extract some of the consistent code out of here. We've got a little bit of duplication, so actually, we'll finish this test and then we'll get rid of that one, because we are going to have some duplication, because every single time I'm going to be grabbing references to these pieces, and that's just silly. Because I'm going to need to initialize with a handler every time, and that is crazy sauce. Okay, we're going to copy that row. We're going to paste it here. We're going to say to register. And we'll say handler set register to register. And we expect handlers should contain guess maybe expect current collection to contain only a single item matched by the predicate. Yeah, contain a single should contain a single one that goes to that. that how I want to do it? There's our mock handler, and then that's basically the setup, register, and then run it. Greetings and welcome. First test reads to me like the collection cannot be modified after calling initialized. Okay, I'll take a look at the name, Renee. Thanks for letting me know. Twitch is known mainly for gaming streams, so it makes sense. Yeah, so Valinar, I agree from a traditional standpoint, but and you're absolutely right. Gaming is the primary thing on Twitch. It's just they had specifically been making some changes to accommodate the fact that their platform has non-gaming streams on it as well. So, and also, greetings, welcome. Need to figure out what we are doing with the whole file name versus class name and folder name with naming conventions for unit tests, but I'll collect some thoughts in an issue. Sounds good, Simon. Yes, I agree. So I really like should in the names of them because I like the way it reads when I run the tests. But yes, we do need to figure out something for that. And I will look at that name again, Renee, just to make sure that we get a good one. And, yep. Not implemented. Yep, it's not implemented. So let's go ahead and remove that. Now it should fail for a slightly different reason, but we're still... Whoops, I didn't mean to debug, but it'll still run it. Brutal Swede, wow, long time no see. Welcome, good day. Good day to you, sir, and welcome. So it should fail now on line 45 with does not contain that item. Yep. That's what we expected. Always take should out. My tests are in the indicative and not the subjunctive. Oh, wow, guy. Wow. Ah. I see how it is. I see how it is. Yeah, message handlers set. And then you could say doesn't change collection. I don't know. I like it. I like the should. Okay, so it's not adding it. Let's go add it. Handlers, add. Message handler. And yay for not having to do null guard clauses because of C#8. Yes, we're not going to be receiving any nulls in here because nulls are not even supposed to be allowed at this point. So we're not going to do a check for null, because compilers should keep us safe from that. Okay. I know we didn't do a lot of tests that like we can add one when there's an existing one, but I guess we could do this. Handler 1 and 2. Should have one that matches each one. Let's add that to the test first. Yeah, so the funny thing is, so the comment in chat, there's actually a great one, which is that in every stream someone's building a bot. And that is true and has been true for a long time. We built our first bot on this channel over 2.5 years ago when we started streaming here on this channel regularly. So I was not aware that a whole bunch of people are building like new bots and things like that right now. So if people are building them, interesting. Right now we're building a very different bot than what we've usually built on the stream. This is actually intended to be a modular bot that we and other streamers can use. So my hope is that Guy likes this bot so much that he builds his bot using this and builds his plugins maybe in JavaScript and runs it. I don't know. Maybe we can convince him that when he adds a bot to his stream that this will be the one that he uses. So as long as we make it so that, like, and maybe you want to do it in Python, Guy. Maybe you want to do it in Python. But yes, people do build bots on here. But I can at least say that I did build a bot on Twitch before any of those other people did, because I've been streaming on Twitch longer than most of the other programming streamers. Yeah. So right now our first version is C#, obviously. So we're going to remove the handler on, I called it unregister. I'm actually going to copy this code because there's something about it that I want to borrow. And that is this. We are going to initialize it with handler 1 and handler 2. So this collection will have the handlers in it, and we will unregister them, removing them from the collection. So we're going to say should not contain each of these right after they are unregistered. And yes, some purist is going to yell at me for having broken up my asserts into two separate things like that, and I will yell back at them that it is not worth having a separate test method just to confirm that that works the way it does. Handler set, handlers should be empty. Okay, this is going to throw a not implemented exception. Let's see, was building bots before it became mainstream? Yeah, exactly. Actually, no, it was mainstream even back then. That's what I was saying. Even at that point, all the science and technology people were doing it. Because literally that is one of the best things to program because it interacts with chat. And this is actually, even when I was encouraging new people to stream, it's one of the things I told people, start there. It's great. It interacts with chat. It's something that you can write together. It's related to the stream. You're going to want to build custom stuff for the stream anyway, so why not build your custom stuff for the stream while you're on the stream? So it's just one of the things that you do. Yeah, so it's one of the funny ones. So what Simon's actually alluding to is that there's a lot of stuff that goes on in application development that has nothing to do with connecting to the IRC chat or the web API or anything like that that has to do with programming. It's why some of the projects we've done have been like web applications and things like that. Now, one of our chatbots is a game interaction. So the more interesting piece of that is not the chat interaction, which we set up at the beginning, and that works fine, but it is like, you know, memory manipulation of a running process on the user's computer. You can assert wherever you like, including your main code, where you're doing assertions before TDD or unit tests was even a thing. That is absolutely true, Simon, but there are a lot of purists that say, like, a test method should have one assert at the end of the thing, you know, and then if you need, you know, something else, you need a separate test for that. So there are some purists that want you to do separate tests for all these things. I think it's crazy and a waste. You have a question for me as an experienced bot builder. Is it easy to monetize the bot projects, theoretically at least? That's a great question. There are some ways to monetize bots. I have not monetized bots for myself, but part of the reason for that is I have yet to make the dive into the concept of being a full-time streamer. It's not something that I think I could do, and part of the reason for that is that, well, programmer salaries and streamer salaries, there's a significant gap between those two things. So, like, money's not the end-all be-all thing, but at the same time, it's a huge financial change in your situation to... yes, exactly. There's an order of magnitude difference between developer and streamer. So, unless you could get a lot of support either by being someone who is either being paid by your employer to stream, which that would be something that I might be interested in talking with a company about at some point, but monetizing specifically for yourself is a really tough one. Okay, so to answer your question in a way that has a positive answer, we have built a chatbot that does help monetize things for the streamers. Specifically, our Interactive 7 chatbot has built in, it monitors basically cheering, so the bits, so money being thrown through chat at a streamer. It monitors all that and uses that to convert it into currency that is used by the bot. So Interactive 7 is the bot that we built that is designed to interact with Final Fantasy 7. It gives the chat basically control of the game while the streamer is playing it. That's probably one of our like coolest projects that we've done here. And we have basically made it available to some streamers as like a private early beta access thing, because it's not like fully baked and prepped for like anybody to just use, but it does generally work. It's got some bugs and it needs a good moderating team to help with it, because we don't have the hooks built in to accept donations or convert from channel points yet. And so until we have those, it's kind of important. There's also a lot of things we need to be careful about, because some features that exist you don't want to use at certain points during the game. But we do know that streamers that have been able to use it, that we've made it, that we've basically sent the code to so they could run it, that they actually can make a lot of good money off of running it. So if they do like an Interactive 7 stream, every once in a while, you can actually bring in a good amount of activity, a good amount of attention, and a good amount of just direct donations from chat in using it. I've watched a streamer make literally hundreds and hundreds of dollars in an individual stream just from people that wanted to ruin his day by taking away all of his items in the game. And so like at $200 a pop, people were basically resetting him back to zero equipment. And so it's like, yeah, like that's an expensive thing, but hey, if you want to watch your streamer suffer, cool, we found a way to monetize it for you. So it's cool stuff. So yes, you can find ways of monetizing chatbots. What I doubt works, I doubt that you can sell a chatbot to the streamer. So I guess that type you might be able to, one where the bot itself has a way for the streamer to monetize it while they're using it, you might be able to sell that to someone. I don't know that you could sell a regular chatbot to someone, so I don't know if there'd be a way of monetizing that. And I doubt anyone would be willing to pay much of a subscription fee unless your bot were really, really good. So maybe, if I have not tried that, but if it were possible, that would be, awesome for you if you want to try going that route. Why not? Okay, so let's go ahead and unregister. So we'll remove that, and now when I run the test, when I run the tests, it should come back and hopefully fail for the fact that the items just aren't getting removed. Expected that to have a matching item, but it didn't find it. So when I go to unregister, I just need to say handlers dot. Ooh. Do I remove all just to be sure? Makes me wonder if we need some kind of safety on there. Just to make sure that we don't end up with duplicates. Helpful Stranger. Interactive 7. Yes, Interactive 7 is a very cool thing. So we looked at the terms of service on that and couldn't find anything that would be against it, really. It's almost like throwing bits at streamer to like dare them to do a thing, something or other. We looked into it. We didn't see anything. So I would be shocked if there were a problem with it, but who knows? It is possible that there's some like, oh, you can't receive money to do this thing, and it's like I'd be really surprised by it. So charging for a bot? Oh, well, you certainly could, because why not? I can charge for any software that you want to use. I can sell you software. I could build custom software for you and charge you for the service of making it. I don't know if I doubt there's an issue with that. Oh, so lethal error. Yeah, so there are a ridiculous number of technologies that you could potentially dig into in order to get a job somewhere. However, I really recommend against that type of recruiting. If you are hiring a developer, I would not worry at all about issues of does the candidate know XYZ technology. I don't care if you know React or Vue or Angular or anything like that. I mean, sure, if you do, great. That's perfectly fine. When I hire a developer, I am never looking at like, well, what's their technology background? What I'm looking for is, in their technology background, are they learning new things? I don't care which one it is. So, for example, if you know you're on like, pick a stack, right? In the Microsoft stack, for example. Oh, okay. You are working with .NET Core stuff. Okay, cool. So you're probably, you know, keeping up with things. If you're over in the JavaScript stack and you're working with Knockout and jQuery is what you list, I'm gonna be like, okay, so you're not someone that keeps up a whole bunch. That like I might inquire as to why. That could be that you are just someone that doesn't list all the technologies that you play with, and you only list the ones that you've used for work, which some companies stay on the old stack, the old parts of the stack, and that's fine. A lot of them do it because they have existing applications, and you're not working in greenfield, so you can't, you know, use all the fancy new stuff. Totally fine. Really, all I want to know is, are you used to thinking in modern stuff? And if you are, then that's totally fine. I don't care which one it is. If I'm going to hire you to do some Vue stuff and you've got React experience, cool, you'll figure out the difference. If you've got Angular experience, you'll figure out the difference. Like, it's fine. Oh, you're a C# developer and I want you to work on this JavaScript program? Cool, you'll figure it out. Like, I've always taken the stand. Developers will figure out the language. You don't need to worry about what they know already. And yes, so Helpful Stranger, you're absolutely right. We could change the collection to a hash set, for example, which would remove duplicates because it would not be allowed to have the same one, which works great for a reference, a referential comparison, so referential equality on that. C#, you say you started learning that language as constructs this year in a class. The syntax is nice. Oh, that's good. I am actually a big fan of C#. That is actually what we're running here on our stream. So if anyone is interested in, yes, exactly what Guy says. Yep, rent, skill, hire talent. That's exactly what I'm talking about. So what Guy mentions when he says rent, skill, and hire talent is a practice that a lot of us talk about, and that is the idea. If I'm hiring you to work at our company, I don't care what tech you do. I'm looking for someone that is talented and a good programmer. I don't care what your skill background, your skill set is. Like, what have you worked with in the past? I don't care. I care that you're going to, you know, learn, adapt, and change, because our stack here is not going to remain the same forever. So I want you to be able to adapt. So it's a great way to do something. If we're in crunch mode right now and need someone to help us with this thing, I can bring on a consultant that knows Vue to help us set up our Vue. I can bring in someone to train our team in it as well. I don't need to hire someone that already has, I don't need to hire a whole team of people that know that. I mean, I could hire someone that knows that and they can come in and help, but I can also, but I don't have to hire based on that. I can find the best person for the job rather than the person that already knows the thing. Yes, exactly. Requirement. Obscure JS framework and list. Yes, exactly, Brutal Swede. Sometimes they list some really crazy stuff. Also, Drunk Code Dev, welcome. Thanks for that follow. Much appreciated. Welcome to the stream. Sometimes developers hired for a particular project with strict tech requirements, so it depends on what the developer's hired for. Yeah, so DPQ, what we're talking about is we're saying that hiring someone on in that capacity, that is renting them. When, like, that is, you are renting their skill for X amount of time. So if I bring on someone to work on a project for 6 months, and then that project is going to be done and released and they're going to move on, that is like renting their skill, their expertise, whatever it is, whether it be in a specific technology or a certain type of programming or something like that. That we say renting because they're temporary at that point, because that's project-based hiring rather than hiring someone for the long term. And you're right, sometimes that, you know, renting is an actual like job with a regular recruiting process. And also the other thing Simon's mentioning, the big thing is, even if all those technologies are listed, you do not need to have those technologies. Sometimes it's listing and it's made up by the recruiter or something. Sometimes you don't really need it, and a lot of times companies will hire people that don't have that required skill set because they don't have someone that knows, as Brutal Swede mentions, obscure JS framework as well as Lisp and x86 assembly, because that developer doesn't exist. And if that developer does exist, there are not enough of that developer to even have noticed that the job was available and to have applied. Yes, it is the coding principles that matter. Yep. You're a consultant working primarily in .NET. You got hired to work in a massive Node.js project, and it wasn't a problem. Exactly. As Brutal Swede mentions, it doesn't matter. Like, oh, you've got a lot of experience in C#. Cool, you can do Node. Why not? So one of the things I look for in a developer portfolio is, I would say, the portfolio part of it. And by that I mean one of the big things that you need to have, and heck, this goes back like you know, even to the early days of GitHub being around. Have a GitHub profile listed on your resume. Make sure your resume actually lists your GitHub, and make sure that if someone goes there, they're going to see some projects. Doesn't matter what it is. And I'm not saying like code a whole bunch on the time and spend all your spare time on this. It's like, that could be, hey, we use this open source project at work, and it had this bug and we sent them a PR about it. Or we noticed this problem in their documentation and we sent them a PR about it. Like, it shows some activity in the community. That's one of those like cool things. So when you say portfolio, that's what I usually think of as portfolio right now, is some kind of a GitHub profile with repositories on it. If you've got that, that's a win in my book. That also could be like you pulled local copies to manipulate it on there. You wanted to mess with stuff. Maybe you didn't actually make any contributions. So, yep, those are... the reality is companies don't want to invest in training people who can't hit the ground running. Yes, exactly. That is a ridiculous and silly thing. Yep. More companies should be training their employees. It's just a good way to do things. Once you have a good team, if you invest in them and care about their success and learning, they also stick around longer. That's the silliness. Like, if you want your team to stick around, invest in their learning and invest in them becoming better developers. The number of developers that can get motivated behind, I want to improve the code I'm doing. I want to learn new technologies and try new things. I want to, make sure that every few months when I look back at my old code, I think, wow, what was I even thinking? That's terrible. Like, most developers I've worked with have that mindset. Even if they're not the kind of developer that wants to go home and spend all their time working on development, because I recommend against that, by the way. But even if you're not that kind of like self-motivated, like, oh, I want to be super, do all this extra stuff. You don't have to be that. You don't have to give up your free time. You don't have to wreck, work-life balance. None of that. to still enjoy looking back and seeing self-improvement. So that's such a selling point. It boggles my mind that companies don't invest in training their employees. It's crazy. Twitch Grain, welcome. Thanks for that follow. Much appreciated. Welcome to the stream. What do you think of college degrees being required? I think it's silly. You do not need a college degree in order to be a software developer. A degree is some kind of equivalent proof that you know how to program in some capacity is a good idea. Because that just says, like, we want you to be able to program. A computer science degree or some other degree like that can certainly qualify. Like any kind of, college degree that says they taught me how to program is fine. Going through any kind of boot camp where they taught programming, totally fine. You've got, any experience working as a programmer anywhere in any capacity, that certainly is experience that says you know how to do that. Alternately, you could submit, a link to your GitHub repository again, or Bitbucket, or wherever, any public repository that shows contributions you've made to any kind of project. That would qualify in my book. Any links to any projects that you've worked on. So, like, it could be you haven't had a job yet, but you clearly know how to program. So, like, essentially it's, if you ask me, do you have a portfolio? Do you have years of experience? Do you have a degree? Do you have any kind of certificate from some organization saying you know how to program? Good enough. That's in my book, whichever route you wanted to go. If you wanted the the college experience and wanted the liberal arts background or something like that, cool, yeah, go get a college degree. Excellent. Major in whatever you want too. Like, as long as you fit one of those other requirements that just says, hey, look, I can do some stuff in code. Like, go get yourself an English degree if you really think that it's fun to learn about, the English language. I mean, while I was in college, I took courses on Old English and Middle English, and basically just because I'm a nerd and I thought that was fun. So I also have a computer science degree, and when people are like, has that been helpful? I'm like, well, I mean, I learned some things from it that have been valuable in my career, but at the same time, I could learn those things just by reading books about it. So the degree itself is not necessarily a requirement. It's the knowledge that you gain from it. So, and yes, even if it says that you need one and you don't have one, apply anyway. Just apply to a job regardless of whether or not you meet the requirements, because why not? Okay, so let's go ahead and run this and see what happens. Assuming this works, we're going to do a quick commit of this code, and then we are going to change things to a hash set, because someone made that suggestion, and it is a good one. Okay. So, there we go. Default message, adding a simple message handler set. That looks good. And the nice thing is, since we have the test there already, we can go ahead and add these, and we won't care about these changes. So these will not break anything. So, quick explanation. Oh man, this is an awesome point to mention this. If you are someone who has caught any of the streams that Guy Royce in the chat over there and I did, we were pair programming in JavaScript, making inefficient data structures in JavaScript. One of the inefficient data structures that we built is a hash table. Did we make a hash set ever? I don't know if we did a hash set, but we definitely did a hash table. And they're sort of the same thing. So, but either way, we've done this kind of stuff. So if you're wondering how this works, the hash set is basically you hash the object itself. Yes, exactly. We did a hash table. We didn't do a hash set, which are slightly different. But this one's it's very similar. And yes, we did a hash table with a linked, and we linked listed the underlying data structure of our hash table, I think, and we definitely did a linked list, and we did a Bloom filter. We were talking about doing a skip list too, which I don't think we did yet, which is another interesting probabilistic data structure. So either way, let's go over here, and we do need to change this because we exposed it that way. I guess this could just be, that could technically be something simpler than a hash set. We don't have to expose the fact that it's a hash set to anyone, because this could just be an enumerable of the handlers, and then that could be but then instead of doing this, we give it a backing field. So slightly change the structure here. We made this a backing field with a property that returns back the enumerable, with the reason being that this lets us internally use this as a hash set, but externally use it as an enumerable, so that nothing outside of this implementation understands the fact that it is a more complicated object. So that's the advantage we get there. Okay, so I'm going to make this quick change, and the nice thing is, because we added our tests, we can be pretty darn sure that this is going to work. Once this compiles, we'll run our tests, and in theory, should still give us the answer of, are these items inside of that? In fact, even the referential comparison one should work fine. And it does. You say that, Simon, but I want to change the type. You say that, but I want a different type. So since I want it to be known in here that this is a hash set, because enumerable does not have add and remove, I need to know the type. So in order to avoid having to constantly cast it, I do need to know which one it is. Ooh, Wheatlaw, it could be an I set. That is, it could be something like that. But I think I'm good with this. Without casting it up. I'm wondering if Helpful Stranger has a delay there, because I'm not sure. Because the problem is, handlers.add, if I'm using the enumerable, doesn't work. But I guess if Desugoji, I'm guessing, welcome. Thank you for that follow, much appreciated. Welcome to the stream. If I did an I set of this, so it complains that that is not the correct type, but that would technically work. Yeah, an I set would work. Guess technically. I was thinking that I wanted it to be, yeah, so the challenge, Wheatlaw, is a collection might have the add range, but does a hash set implement collection? Oh, here. Apparently it does. And the answer is no, it does not have an add range. So I guess if I made it a collection, that might be the way to go. So we'll do iCollection, and then I can do what people were suggesting of make that an auto property and We can leave it as read only. Yeah, we'll make it an I collection. An I set is a collection, a hash set is an I set, is an I collection, is an I enumerable. Yes, exactly, Wheatlaw. Can't be auto property. It can be this way, though. We lose the fact that we're a hash set, but we don't care because we do still have the add and remove as long as we maintain the I collection. Yes. Oh, DOMFX. Oh, is it on there? Ooh, if it's there, that's going to be neat. Nope. No add range. Now, it might be there might be another extension method to get it. It was 10-second back down to 3-second latency now. Oh, okay. You're referring to not wanting to constantly cast it. Yes, exactly. Yep, precisely. Yep, you agree with me. Tensei C, you created a PR for the virtualization you said a couple of days ago? Ooh, let me go have a look. You sent us a PR. I will bring that up. Whoops. Yeah, add range I know is on list, and I don't think it's on iList either. So the built-in add range I know is list. Using virtualization on the terminal list box. Oh yeah, you talked about doing this. Okay. So is that one the same one? Yes. So you added the Chatterbot namespace in here. The item source binding message is the same thing with you added a scroll viewer, disabled. Virtualizing panel is virtualizing true. So this was the pixel-based scrolling that you were talking about, instead of doing line-based scrolling. And anything else changed in here? This is the item template for the data item. That looks the same. It's just confused. Yeah, and then that's just reformatting. So you cut out the scroll viewer and put it into the onto the list box and adjusted how it works. Nice. I will review that a little bit more outside of the stream. Okay. Looks like add range is a method of list. For each as well. Yep. For each is on list specifically. Although that being said, I often create my own extension method on IEnumerable to allow for eaching an enumerable. Endless for each with link gets rid of the loop. Oh, did link add one that'll do that? Doesn't look like link has one for an IEnumerable. A list is like the privileged child of IEnumerable. Yes, it really is. Yeah, the for each is only on list as far as I know. Yes, Tensei, exactly. I saw that it just did some formatting, which is fine. It's just one of those funny things that always messes up comparisons to GitHub because you're like, did this actually change? Yes. If you are someone that was working on our project and you had pulled your own copy of it, we did a whole bunch of migrations, so you might be better off just pulling again and like cloning again and trying again because you'll have a lot of merge conflicts. Okay, you know what? Let's just add it. Let's add it because it's fun. Well, no, we'll leave it like this. It's fun. Let's run our tests, make sure this is okay, and then we'll commit it. We want to move on to some other code. We want more interesting stuff. let's go write some more interesting code. Okay, good. Those still pass. Let's commit this. So, changing... we'll say we'll storm as a hash set. Yep, interesting code. Okay, so plugin info. So right now I create this little observable collection inside the view model. So that when I told you that was a placeholder, I meant that was placeholder data. There are no modules in here yet. So it's not doing anything to figure out that these are the modules. What we need it to do is keep track of the plugins. So how are we going to do that? We need to know that the plugins exist. We need to track them. So I'm going to do the same thing that we just did, but for plugin info. Let's finish our last one first, actually. Whoops, wrong one. I want the other reference. I want this one. So in here, this grabs all the message handlers in the message handler object, which I don't want it to do. I want it to. I do not want this to have its own collection. So you can set up your IOC container to be able to track collections, and that is fine. It can have like a collection that it maintains. If you do that, you end up with a singleton collection that exists in the IOC container that other things can modify and change as it's running. Works fine. I'm not a huge fan of that because I would rather have like an object around it that's keeping track of these things rather than just say, there was a collection, we made it available to everything. It could do they could do whatever they want with them. If they wanted to, you know, remove someone else's registration, they totally can. And I'm kind of like, I'd rather not. So like, let's not expose the whole collection to them. Let's just give them the ability to register and unregister. And in fact, even on that, I may change our interface so that fewer things have access to it. But we'll get to that when we do. The IEnumerable message handler is going to change to an iMessage handler set. And that is going to be the message handler set. Right there. On that one. And that one. So now, when this gets initialized, it does not want a collection of these. It wants the set, which is the state of, it's like, our sets are like our application state variables. This is like, what is the current condition of the running application? Like, what does it care about? Simon, we're gonna go to binding lists everywhere. I thought I changed that already in one of the PRs. I think we switched to binding lists everywhere. So if I missed an observable collection, then feel free to change it to a binding list. It's totally possible that I did. Okay. So now in order to finish this message handler set change, we need to go over to our not this one. This one. Wherever this is. Domain. There it is. add singleton of the iMessage handler set, implementing the message handler set type. And there we go. So when we register the domain concerns, we will add in this type. The message handler Wheatlol is basically if anyone wants their plugin to be able to respond to messages, they'll respond to a message handler. When we create adapters to work in non-C# languages, there will be basically there will be an adapter of the message handler into whatever language it's supposed to be. Have I written a Discord bot? I have not written a Discord bot, Helpful Stranger, but it's pretty much the same thing as this. You just change the essentially libraries that you're connecting to. So while we're using TwitchLib to do our communication with Twitch, there are other libraries that will connect you over to Discord as well, because it also has, like, you know, similar connections. Yeah, so Simon, I do expect that we are going to want to async a lot of this stuff at some point, but we have not yet, and part of that is that we've triggered a lot of stuff off of libraries that are not using async, and so because of that, since they're rooted in synchronous code, it gets weird. Like, you get some nasty stuff when you do that. So I'm expecting there to be better async code in vNext of TwitchLib, which is probably going to have us doing more async when we switch to that. But I want to wait until we get TwitchLib in place to see how everything gets implemented, so we don't end up with it being weird there. So keep an eye out on what Lucky's doing, just to see if he does anything interesting. I don't know. Since he hasn't said hi, I'm assuming he's not here today. Okay, I registered that, right? Did we don't initialize it anywhere yet, though. Initialize message handlers. What did I call that? On app startup. There we go. This we may want to send this somewhere else if you receive a provider. Do this and that now. Move this to domain project. Probably this too. The Brother Son, welcome. Thanks for that follow, much appreciated. Welcome to the stream. I'm not going to move this yet, but I do want to move it. Hence the note about that. So that'll get us our set, and then we want to get all the iMessage handlers that are available for now. That's our message handler set. And this is our message handlers. There we go. Greetings, Twitchloff. Oh, Simon. Wait, someone, Helpful Stranger, said something and got their message nuked. Oh, wait. We recently had some nasty stuff at work related to having to use async code in a plugin that was designed for async. Oh, that isn't designed for async. Yes, exactly. Yes. Wheatlaw is correct. If you're doing if you're doing a bunch of stuff that's async in a synchronous library, you can run into problems. But there is only a client secret, so an authorization flow isn't possible. Helpful stranger. I'm gonna have to think about that one for a second, but that is a good question. So in our project, you may have seen that we did take some steps to make sure the OAuth token is at least encrypted locally, so that it's not like plain text. That doesn't make it like super secure, but the idea is just trying to elevate the bar a little bit higher, so that it's not like someone just walks along, takes your token, and just goes nuts using your account. So Simon, speaking of TwitchLib, you were saying that he had DocFX support in his other current project, which he's going to open source and be able to use pointers. How do you working with their own plugin SDK, MSC, and library? So, yeah. So I'm a big fan of doing basically Git stored documentation. I think it's a fantastic way of doing docs. Twitchloft, welcome, greetings. Coated Beard, good evening, welcome. Oh yeah, sorry about that. I did not mean for the Discord bot to, or the Night bot to get overzealous and block that link. But so the question that was asked is essentially, what do you do if you can't do an OAuth style authorization like we did for this? So in this project, if you check out our previous episodes, which you can find over on our YouTube channel, they are showing up over there. We did talk about how we set up our authorization. We stepped through that, so we actually do like a back and forth authorization. It comes back to us. So we essentially send you out to a browser where you put in your credentials. Twitch sends you back with the correct information, and we store that. After encrypting it, we store that in a file on the user's computer. So there is a database file that it'll get stored in. If the user cares additionally about security, they can take an additional step and password protect their database file as well, so that it also gets encrypted. But again, that's entirely up to them. If they really care about not exposing any of their data, that is possible using the data storage technique we're using here. And it is just a configuration setting they changed to do that. Okay, so Wheatlaw, you made it create a new thread and inject it into the default pool, do a thread blocking, wait for the async result, and signaling the newly created thread to be nuked when idle. Yeah, exactly. There's a lot of weirdness. It is, if your application is synchronous, try to avoid doing async stuff if you can. If your application is async, try to avoid doing too much synchronous stuff. Try to keep it async if you can. Those are your two boats. Like, what is your application mostly doing? Try to stick with whatever it is and minimize how much you're doing that isn't. Because you don't want to have like a long-running synchronous process in an async application, because that's just silly. When you are writing generic stuff, try to find another job. Oh, plenty of people have to have jobs writing all the boring stuff. That's, you don't get around that. We all have to do some of that some days. Okay, so we're grabbing this set. We're grabbing all the providers that implement this. This, by the way, this is not the way it's working long term. This is the way it's working now. We mentioned the fact that the plugins are going to make it load after the fact. So this specifically is only for ones that are included, which is going to be none in a well, maybe none in a little bit, depending on how we want to implement it. We could have them all happen after the fact. At which point the initialize becomes useless, and we're actually just adding them when we do our plugin initialization. So we'll see what we do with that. So these might entirely just go away, and if they do, I'll be thrilled by that, because this thing that I'm wanting to put in another place could just be gotten rid of. Anytime I can get rid of code, I'm happy. Okay, so that should get those initialized. Let's find out if this works. I may have forgotten a dependency getting registered or something, but we'll see. Lethal, am I getting paid to make this bot? Well, that depends on what you mean by getting paid. Oh man, I make like $1 or $2 an hour from all these donations and bits that people throw at me. Are you kidding? Like, I could retire on that. No, I do not get paid to do any of this stuff. I just do this for fun and to help out the community. So this does not confirm that it works. This just confirms that we didn't mess up anything that makes it load. The bot is there in chat. And let's try saying ping. Still responds with pong. So looks like we got it wired up correctly. And I apologize because it's double doing that because we've got a regular bot and then this bot's responding to the same commands. So sorry about that. But that does look like it's working. So, and yes, for anyone that says, well, can't you just write a test for that? Well, yeah, I can, but I don't want any tests that actually go out to Twitch. So in order to confirm that it really does work like end to end all the way to Twitch, yeah, I need to do that. How did you get one response for ping? Wheatlaw, ping is only in the, it's only in this bot. That command is not one that exists in the other one. That's why there'd only be one for ping. So the bot we're writing right now has ping. Yep. Command prefixes. Yes, there is. So it is an exclamation command prefix right now, which we could change the command prefixes so that they responded to different ones if we didn't want to get doubles. How long have you been working? Lethal error. I've been working. So I learned C# when 2 came out. So 15 years ago is when I learned C#. Since learning it, I still do projects in other languages. I still do the occasional Python project. I still work with Java from time to time when I have to. I don't escape from other languages, but yeah, I've been doing C# for about 15 years, and when I started it, C# 2 is about the first point that I would have recommended really anybody dig into C#. Before that, they didn't even have generics, and well, without C#'s generics, it's really a language that's missing. It was missing a bunch of stuff. It was 2008, so about 12 years ago is when C# really hit its stride, when it added in lambda expressions and LINQ. That's when C# was like, okay, good. This is actually a solid, mature language that lots of people should be using. And Fuel Snable, welcome, greetings, hello. You get a glass of wine, and Fuel Snable, are you working from home or working in an office? Because if you're working from home and the problem was like, you know, I don't know, your cat jumped up and spilled the wine or something, then that's an annoying incident. C#'s only about 20 years old, Lethal, which. Yeah, if you want to, like, 20-year-old language is technically fairly new compared to some of the other ones. You started with .NET when it was brand spanking new, but then you did other things. Well, Guy, there are very few things that I'm not way better than you at. I mean, what do you have on me? You've got beard growth. No, I'm just kidding. No, no, actually, Guy is amazing. I'm just kidding. Guy is actually a really good programmer. He's much better at JavaScript than I am. Guy is actually a better speaker than I am. I'll give you that, Guy. Like, put Guy up in front of an audience. They will absolutely love pretty much everything he has to say. But no, I like making arrogant jokes. So yes, beard growth. Yeah. Guy definitely grows. I will say he grows way better beards than I do. Let's see. Oh yes, Twitchlove is right. With all Microsoft products, they really hit their stride when you hit V2. So version 2 of C# is when it was suddenly usable. You have to wait that long. Everything is new compared to Fortran. That's right, Wheatlaw. It is. Beards are important for developers. No, only for some developers. There are many great developers that do not have beards, and by that I cite most of the women I know that program don't have beards, and I say most because I'm sure there are some that do. Guy Royce is even better than Santa at beard growth. Guy has an awesome beard. He really does. I cannot argue that. All right. So this is wire up use of message handler set. And then we will push that up. Okay, so we are actually using this new code that we did here. We need to make a new bit of state, and that is we need to track the plugins. So this is the current plugins that are running. Not to be confused with the ones that are known, I think. Is it? No, maybe they're not. Maybe they're not the running ones. I have to think about this. So essentially what we want to do is we want to know that it exists in the system, and we can do this. These are the ones that should be here. So at this point, I kind of want to pull this out as a separate interface, and this is like the like special like state set or something like that. Mainframers are the bearders. Well, depends on how far back you go into the mainframing. You've only been coding for about 2 years now, and you feel like you're just chipping away at the iceberg. Lethal error, that is absolutely true. If you are two years in, first off, welcome, and you will have a lifetime of learning in this space, and you will never stop. And so Simon is correct. I have also been programming for over 20 years, and I can tell you, you will be learning the entire time. And yes, see, Wheatlaw. So like, if you listen to anyone that's been programming for any length of time, we will all tell you you will never, ever stop learning. Like, if you stop learning, then you're pretty much done programming at that point. You, like, I mean, not to say that you always have to be you always have to be learning, but if you stop, then I mean that's just silly. Okay, so this is the iPlugin info. Ooh, since this is just a data class, if I'm doing this, and is that the one I want? I think it might be. I'm gonna have to debate this a little bit. I don't know what I want to do with this. So this is in a state of flux right now. So let's talk about these different pieces. So someone's probably wondering, what is plugin info and what is plugin? So since this should compile, I'm going to run the application. We'll talk about the different pieces, just so that we can discuss a little bit. Yes, all IT, whether it be programming or other stuff, any technical, anything in the computing space at all is going to be fast-paced, and you'll continue learning. The good news is it never gets boring. Yes, Simon is correct. Programming never gets boring. There's always new stuff you have to learn, and it is an infinite loop of learning. Yep. Yes, it moves forward fast enough to keep it interesting. Now, well said, Wheatlaw. Well said. Okay, so here's the deal. What is iPlugin? iPlugin is the interface that lets a plugin work. That's like how we interact with it. So like it registers itself as a plugin. We're going to call the plugin methods to initialize it and uninitialize it and things like that. This command screen is part of a plugin. The plugin has said, hey, I want to have this screen, I want these message handlers, I want this stuff. That's what the iPlugin is supposed to do. It's supposed to define all the hooks. It's what gets called. This screen is the screen that shows us plugin info. So plugin info is basically just a row in this table. And I want to change the back end of this view model to be a plugin set. And essentially this is what plugins does the application currently see in the plugins folder. And what does it and essentially does that line up with what data it has stored in the database. So some of this it can read off it will have it read off the metadata of the object that's in the database. Some of this that's in the folder. Some of this information might get pulled from the database. The information that we get pulled from the database is whether or not we should have it enabled or disabled. We're going to want to store that, and then any other configuration about it might get stored as well. Let's see. You find so Fuel Stable, you relearn stuff as well that you knew but you forgot. Yes, so Fuel Stable is actually hitting on a really good point, and it's one of the reasons why I recommend, especially to newer programmers. Lethal Error, since you've been programming for a couple of years now, it sounds like, I would highly recommend that, and I actually would have recommended you do this beforehand, write blog posts or some equivalent. And the reason I say that is you're going to learn a lot of things, especially in as you're this is something people don't think of doing, because a lot of people stepping into the field think I'm not the expert on this, I shouldn't be writing this. You know enough. So the reason I suggest writing a blog, basically of, I learned this cool thing, let me write it down. First off, that helps you learn it because you have to learn it well enough to explain it. But then the other thing that adds is, later on, you can Google for whatever that thing is that you've forgotten how to do, and you find your own blog post. And I don't know about you, but I explain in language that I understand. So when I read my own blog post, I can always understand something that I was learning. So it's very useful to be able to do that, and to be able to look back at your own stuff, because Fuel Stable mentions relearning the same thing that you've forgotten. So what I try to keep in my brain is not how to do all the things, it's that there is a way to do that thing, because then I can Google for it. If I remember that XYZ feature exists in some language, I don't need to remember the syntax. I just need to know it's there and I can find it again. And I can even go to my own blog post, my own article about it, my own video about it, whatever. So whatever you try to do, you can essentially then explain to yourself, and then it also shares it with anybody else that's looking for that information that hasn't done it before. And yes, so as Simon mentions, it can be a notebook, it could be a GitHub repository, it could be a wiki, it could be whatever. Person with a bunch of zeros and X's in your name, welcome, thanks for that follow. And Oniyu, I don't know if that means something, but welcome, thanks for that follow, much appreciated. And Fuel Snable's correct. If you toss stuff on a gist at GitHub, that is a great place to just throw something. If you have an example that you want to toss up there, a quick explanation, that's a great spot for it. So people are correct, it does not have to be a blog post, that's just like one example of where it could be. You need a CRUD acronym to include merge and upsert, perhaps read, upsert, delete. Yeah, RUD. Yep, absolutely. So thank you for those follows, by the way, and anyone else that is interested in catching our future streams, be sure to click the follow button, as it's the best way to get notified when we go live. You sometimes find really good Stack Overflow answers and then realized you wrote it from years ago, and yes, Fuel Stable, I've done the same thing, where I'm like, oh, that's a fantastic explanation, thanks. And then I'm like, thanks me, wait, when did I write that? I don't remember writing that. And then other times you'll get like, I found one time where I was like, oh, that's a great answer to that. And the person had referenced, like, they use sample code and they reference they link to where they got it from, and they got it from my blog. And so I was like, oh, that's funny. Yeah, okay, good. That was my answer. That they like, yep, awesome. And yes, so the reason I suggested blog or something like that, and it's fuel sample mention is probably mentioning right there, make them public. Just share them with the rest of the community. A case that I have been making for a long time. So I learned to program, I'll say, on my own, and I'm using that phrasing intentionally. I did not. I knew how to program before I went to a university and got a degree. Welcome, thank you for that follow, much appreciated. And when I did that, because I'd already learned how to program, like I was really learning like the computer science stuff, not the programming stuff, in college, and so a lot of people that did the same kind of thing use a specific phrase, and that's the phrase I'm trying to avoid. I hear a lot of people say self-taught programmer, and I kind of sit there and I go, yeah, I totally get that. I totally get that. Self-taught programmer, because you were not going to a class where someone explained programming to you. But I don't usually like calling myself a self-taught programmer, and I will explain why. I usually prefer to say that I am a community-taught developer, in that I learned to program not like by sitting in a box and pounding on a keyboard trying to figure out, how this made code run. Now, I did some of that. Like, I sat around on a graphing calculator and figured out how to program it by just guessing what the commands were and whether or not it ran. So that was self-taught. I did self-teach myself how to program graphing calculators. I did not self-teach myself HTML and JavaScript, for example, back in the 90s. I learned that from the community. I learned it from, reading articles, from reading other people's posts, from looking at examples. So I would, view source on your code and see like, well, how did they do that? Oh, okay. So like if you take these pieces, those fit together. Oh, this article's about this documentation. When I was doing a bunch of stuff, I've read man pages about programming topics. That is community. Someone in the open source community wrote the man pages for a bunch of stuff in Linux for me to be able to do things. When I read the documentation, the official documentation for C#, for example, on the docs.microsoft.com website, that's an element of community. When I read a Stack Overflow post that explained to me how to do something, that's the community teaching me how to do these things. So that's why I say I'm a community-taught developer, which is one of the reasons why I tell people, if you're going to write down notes of how to do something, make them public. Like, basically, give back to that community. The same thing that taught me how to program, you can teach the next person how to program. So, that, like, I recommend that to everyone. Like, just, it's where a lot of programmers come from. We learn from the community. If you can add to that, add to that. And that's, like, that is the greatest thing that you can do as a programmer, is help create more programmers. That's how we make the space better. That's how we make the space, more welcoming and open, is just give out free stuff. I mean, that's like a lot of what these live streams are too. Like, it's entertaining and fun and things like that, but we're also like sharing knowledge and talking about stuff. So this is like more just community stuff. We're all sharing what we know with each other. You read a blog today about a problem which had an explanation section. It literally said, I have no idea why. If you know, leave a comment. That is awesome, Renee. I have also done those kinds of things where I didn't know why. Like, and it's good to mention that. Lethal, if you want to contribute to our projects, take a look at our Discord. Not our Discord. Take a look at our GitHub. I would also recommend joining our Discord, because that's the place where you can talk about it. So I would recommend talking about things before just, tossing in changes, because it could be that, like, oh, so-and-so's working on that, or our GitHub generally has the information about that. There's a lot of good stuff out there, so if you are interested in contributing, that's the place to go. And I will show you where it is. So if you are interested in working on this project at all, this is the place that you want to go. Which I tossed a link to our general GitHub on there, but this is the actual spot. Our instructions for contributing are not totally great yet, but we have some explanation on like the structure that we'll use, and there are some helpers, like if you want to put in an issue suggestion, it will actually prompt with bug report and feature report, or you can start with a blank one if those really didn't apply, which most of the time these are going to apply pretty well. And you can also send us pull requests. And if you are not sure how to do that kind of thing on GitHub, you're not really like, oh, sorry about that, stool penner. Yeah, it's not dark on there. If you're not super familiar with GitHub and just generally using Git or GitHub or anything like that, I actually do have a Pluralsight course on GitHub that you can find just by looking for this name on Pluralsight. So if you are a Pluralsight subscriber, you can check those out there. And yes, as Helpful Stranger mentions, reading books is also community taught. That's absolutely 100% part of the community. So thank you for mentioning that, Helpful Stranger. And one of the big reasons for that is that some authors of books make a lot of money off their books. Programming books, usually that author made less than minimum wage, is very common. Yes, exactly. So I really like the term community taught. I am hoping that it picks up because I think it illustrates the concept that we're all not sitting in a room learning on our own. We are learning by sharing our knowledge with each other. Like every bit of article, every bit of information that we put out there to share with the rest of the community, that's what really teaches most of us. Do I have some advanced concepts on Pluralsight as well? So I don't have a lot of courses on Pluralsight. I've about the closest. If you want to check out some of the advanced concept stuffs, I would actually point you towards Steve Smith, who basically did like every Pluralsight course that I would want to do on a more advanced topic. Steve already has one for that. And again, you should be able to search for him, just Steve Smith, and you'll find his courses on there. Nobody asked our summer interns. We had a very interesting project for us. Oh, yeah. Fuel Snibble, you had summer interns during all this work from home stuff? That is awesome. And yes, internships are actually a great way to learn additional stuff. Okay, let's go ahead and jump in to this piece. So the plugin set is the new thing that we're going to create so that we can track all the plugin information. That is in our basic abstractions library, and then inside of our domain library, we are going to create a class that is an implementation of this. It is a plugin set. It is an I plugin set. What is interesting about this one is internal. There we go. Equals new hash set of plugin info. This initialize will absolutely load from the database. That's what's interesting about this one. You gotta love rock, paper, scissors in the chat. Always fun. Let me hang on one sec. I just want to check my... I have a text message. I just want to make sure it's not something important. It is not. Okay. I'm going to make a class called a base Maybe it's a base state base set. Ugh, I'm not liking my naming right now. Not liking my naming. Internal abstract class called base set. And I may uninternal this just for testing purposes. Yeah, so that's one of the funny things, Fuel Snable, is whenever people talk about like changing service. So Fuel Snable is mentioning that their team is switching from one cloud logging service to another one, and they're doing a bunch of work to transition their whole system over to that. And a lot of times I'll hear businesses talk about like, yeah, we're going to do this big effort so that we can save money because this is going to be a lower infrastructure cost. And you sit there and you're like, okay, so you're going to save, you know, $100 a month on your infrastructure cost by switching to this new thing, or maybe it's more. I don't know. Maybe it's more, maybe it's less. It's like, okay, $100 a month. Multiply that out by 10 years, and you have paid for the cost of the development effort to switch. You're like, okay, wasn't worth doing that. Now, like, you're talking like saves you $50K a month. Absolutely, that's totally worth it. Like, even if it took a bunch of devs to do it, that pays off quickly. But yeah, there's a lot of that kind of stuff where it's like, okay, good job. You just spent a bunch of money to save some money. You shifted it from one team's budget to another because the development cost went up and the IT cost went down. You changed one line of cloud information, saved 100 grand a month. That's more like it. Yeah. Exactly, Fuel Snable. So some things can save you a bunch, but it's got to be in the places where there really was an expense. But like switching, I don't know how much you're using your cloud provider, so maybe the cost difference is actually significant. But like usually, I don't like the cloud logging. I don't think of as one of the high expense items unless you're doing a lot of logging. I don't know what domain you're in, so maybe it is a place where that gets costly. So we're going to take this code. And this code and put it over here. So now someone's got to be wondering right now, I'm making this new base abstract class, and the reason why is I think for most of these I don't really need a set for it, and if I do, I just need a named one. I made it abstract for now because I'm not sure if we're going to need it. Twitch Love, wait, what? I am a consultant. What's that? Oh, development doesn't cost anything. Yeah, Renee, as a consultant, I can tell you, my clients pay a lot of money for my time, because, you know, that's how consulting works. Whereas some companies don't see that in the budgets of their employees, so they see that as like, oh, we already spent that, so it's zero to have the devs work on this. It's like, no, it's lost opportunity cost that they should have been able to work on something else. But yeah, if your developer's just there to reduce your other expenses, then yeah, that's the kind of cost you go after. I will admit, when people talk, like, if you want really bad descriptions of what software developers do, we a lot of times are eliminating someone else's job. That literally is what we're doing. You don't usually see it because, like, oh, you automated this thing. Yeah, that takes away someone's job. You're doing this stuff in the database. Well, if you didn't do it with the database, you'd have someone doing it by hand. If you didn't build this web interface for people to be able to send it, someone else again would have to do it by hand. So at the end of the day, programmers are just removing other people's jobs. And sometimes that's more literal than you'd think. I have been hired with the specific express purpose of automate out every single thing that this employee, that a small company that I was hired to work for, did not like their IT guy and were upset by the fact that he didn't automate any of his stuff. So they hired me to literally automate every single task he did. And then once I had automated all of his tasks, then I left and he left. And it's like, here, you have buttons to click that do literally all of his jobs now. This is what he spent all of his time on. That's like, yep, you no longer have to pay 6 figures to some guy to do things that you can click yourself. and I was just brought on to, in 6 months, replace him. So, sorry. Like, if I can automate your job out of the way in 6 months, you weren't doing your job right. I've also, I did some work in the past where someone wanted me to do some IT work for them. And they previously had people do the work just manually the whole time. And I was like, well, I could just build an application that does this for me. It's like, which is what I'm going to do. And so I told them that that's what I was going to do. And they were like, oh, okay, yeah. I was like, I think it'll take about as much time as it was going to do it manually. And so I did it, and I told them how long it would take. They're like, yep, that's what we normally pay. So they paid me the money to do it. And then the funny thing is, the next year they were like, hey, can we get you to do this again? I'm like, okay, but I'm just going to run it through my same program again. They're like, okay. It's like, I'm like, which is silly. They're like, we'll pay you the same amount to do it though, because like we've got this budgeted to cost us. I'm like, okay, cool. All right, that's fine. And then I handed it off to someone else. I was like, here, you can run this, tweak the program as they need it, like, because they basically have budgeted this amount of money to do this task. They used to pay, you know, a person to just do this, like, you know, for minimum wage to just do data entry. It's like, yeah, no, this program just does it for you. I was like, okay, cool, yeah. So, programmers, we automate people's jobs out of the way. That's consultancy, not development. Yeah, sure, that's fair. That's fair. You've done jobs where the job was to eliminate my own job. Yeah, Simon, no, that's what programmers should do. We should eliminate our own job. That's why I wasn't needed anymore and I could hand the program off to someone else. Like, we should eliminate our own job. Yeah, so that is the silliness, is like, every programmer should automate themselves out of the job and then move on to the next task. Like, automate your own job away. Whatever it is that you're doing by hand, automate it and then move on to the next thing. You were managing backend services. The company decided to move to the backend to an external company, so you spent 3 months moving all your services to the external company. And yes, as soon as you're done with the work, you're fired. But the silliness there, Fuel Snable, is that's just handing it off. I removed the need for a human to do the work, which is a separate step. Twitch Love, thanks very much for doing a 10-month resub with Twitch Prime. And do make sure to enjoy all of your DevChatter Chatosaurus emotes all around Twitch. Yeah. have to put the dancing emote in there, because why not? You were managing the backend service yourself for 500,000 users. There are a lot of yes, exactly. I'm sure there was a lot of automation, Fuel Snable. Nice, Renee. Yeah. Funny enough, I'm working with a client to get them off of TeamCity, but I do actually like TeamCity. We're moving to GitHub Actions instead of TeamCity, so they don't have to run their own instance. And so, since they were going to have to move to a cloud interface anyway, they decided to do GitHub Actions instead of the TeamCity equivalent. It was a good experience to get laid off. Why was that a good experience, Fuel Snable? Just so you'd been laid off before, or specifically that you were glad to have not been there anymore? Because it might have been something wrong with the place. Okay, so I feel like, whoops. I feel like this is a good answer for that code we just did, is we change it to this, make this a internal abstract. If we made this a public abstract one, then we could adjust that. Including the resharper inspections and the dupe detection. Nice, Renee. How do you like TeamCity? You loved it 10 years ago, but you feel like it has lost its way and it's harder than doing vanilla build scripts. Yeah. First off, live coding. That is a very, very fun name. 30 all jobs. So lethal error. You say that, but I think it's further off than people expect. I don't think we'll automate that. Like, more and more jobs are getting automated out of existence, but I think it's going to take a lot more years than just that to get rid of them. But yes, plenty. But it's gradual over time. So many jobs will be gone, you know, in just decades' time. in just, like, literally 10 years, we hopefully will have removed a bunch of jobs. Society-wise, that's a good way to go. 2031. Yeah, there you go. For those who are on-prem with TeamCity, note you can self-host GitHub Actions. Yes, you totally can. It was good to see how you feel when you were told you are no longer needed. Fuel snip, yeah. You're right. That would be an interesting life experience to have at some point. Yep. Okay, so we need to change this name. These are not plugins. What are these? Models? They could be entities. I don't know what to call them. I'm calling them items for now. I'm not sure what to go with. Vorpal Thunder, thanks for the lurk. Yes, dumpster's correct. There could always just be new ones that will get created. And welcome, Kevin. Thanks for the lurk as well. Yes, a lot of people thought that programming jobs were going to disappear because programming languages and frameworks and everything like that were getting more advanced, so you could do a lot more with less code. But all that meant was we needed more more programs are needed, and more automation was needed. So it just meant more programming jobs, actually. I hope not. I'm not a big Scrum fan. I don't want Scrum Masters to be the only jobs left. I much prefer the Kanban style approach, which, funny enough, Scrum sort of adapted at one point, even though it was like, oh, Scrum was like this prescribed recipe at one point, and then it's like, okay, everybody else, like, rest of us were like, no, you shouldn't do that. You should do like a Kanban style approach where you're slowly adjusting over time and making changes, and you always start with whatever your current process is and make changes to improve it. Scrum is an agile methodology. Helpful stranger. So it's like a software development, like, you know, business level process. It's probably a good as good of explanation as I'm going to get for it. Let's see. It is just service running on a box that fires a bunch of PowerShell orchestrated by the cloud. What you do with FC. Yeah, so that's actually how a lot of automated processes works. Is basically just scripts running things at the end of the day. Okay. So I think this will work pretty well. Let's find out by changing how the message handler set works. So we're going to make it a base set of iMessage handler. All right. Yes, of course this has to be public. Because that can't be public if the base isn't public. Okay. So let's put this down in there. Initialize is just going to use items here and items here. And then on this, it's going to add it in the register. Whoops, that should just be item. So that's the item. This is the items. And then remove is just down here, and it's going to be that with items and item. Did I miss anything? Yes, I missed this. This is item. Item. And sorry for that short interruption there, chat. I just wanted to get that code written while I was thinking about it. So then these go away, because I replaced them. And then this, so handlers that. I think we can expose handlers, actually, as an I collection of this. And instead of having this set, we'll just make it be... we'll just make it return that. So it's essentially just a wrapper around that so that a caller of this thinks of this as handlers instead of as items. But then I think that's all it needs to do. And yes. Okay, so jumping back into some of that. Kanban is just Scrum without meetings, am I right? Certainly not original Scrum. Original Scrum had so much like ceremony and specific recipes, and Kanban is like, it's more it's similar to someone looked at the Agile Manifesto and what it said and said, how do we make a process out of this? And said, well, that's easy. First off, because Agile says don't make a process, we won't really make a process. The process part of it is a process for change. So, like, rather than prescribing the process you use, it just describes how you change your process. So Kanban is more about the way of modifying what you're doing. So it's change your development process slowly over time using this set of change mechanics, rather than here's the right way. Because the whole thing that Agile was trying to push is more important than the right way is, just finding a way that works, that that reduces waste, that enables communication between people. So, like, there's not a specific thing you should be doing. It's make information available. Make sure that you shorten feedback loops. It's make sure that humans are talking to humans, and make sure that you're building working code that has value. These concepts are like the core of it. And Scrum was about, like, well, here's the way that you do it. You set up these sprints, and you set up these meetings, and you talk to these people, and you have these certain roles, and you have to have a person that's in this role, and this role, and this role, and they're going to go to these meetings, and they do these things, and this is the prescribed way to do it. And it's like, okay, that doesn't work for all teams. Not all teams are the same sizes. Not all the teams are building the same types of software. Not all teams are like there's one size fits all approach is like anti-agile, and like trying to force it onto a team doesn't always work. And you're right. So Kanban usually doesn't prescribe a sprint. It talks like it's more about like release cycle concept, which could be any length of time that you want. So maybe it's daily. Maybe it's like when you've got something ready to go. Maybe it's like, it does not define like, hey, we upfront establish this is the stuff that has to go into this release. No, you just build. We used to say XP equals we don't do documentation. Kanban is we don't. Scrum is we don't do anything else. Yeah, so drunk code dev. I was actually someone that used extreme programming and then Kanban, and I basically looked at Scrum and was appalled that someone thought Scrum was Agile. Scrum I always describe as, we wanted to do waterfall, but someone said we had to do Agile, so we did Scrum instead. That's usually what I think of Scrum. Scrum is we wanted to do Agile, but pretend it was, or we wanted to do waterfall and pretend it was Agile, and that's how you get Scrum. That being said, it's like, you can get some value out of it. I don't want to be like super critical of it. It's got value. It does. There's some good stuff in there. It can help you. It doesn't mean it doesn't, but it is a very waterfall way of doing Agile. Yep, exactly. As Renee mentioned, in Kanban, you reorder the backlog, so you're working on whatever the highest priority is. So Kanban is really about like constant. It's about like changing things up until the last second, until you can't anymore, and it's all about working on the highest priority and focusing on throughput. So it's about getting work done that is always the highest priority work. Don't. Yeah, exactly. It's doing Scrum correctly is hard. Yeah. And yes, velocity is always one of the silly metrics. The best process is the minimum amount of process possible needed to get on with writing code without interruption. Yeah, so Simon's correct. And process, and the really big thing is, because what Simon mentioned is it's the what is the minimum amount of, like, extra pieces you can have that still allow you to do your job, and that varies based on team, project, company, etc. Some organizations won't be able to do that. And even the concepts have different meaning depending on your team. If you work at a product company that releases new versions that are for sale every quarter or 6 months or something like that, or you're a game, you work for a game company and they're going to build and eventually release a product, like, you don't, like, your weekly releases might be weekly release of a beta version or weekly release of some new internal build, but these things have different meaning, which is why you can't one size fits all the concept. So sometimes a company can't release their product because it's getting sent out to internal machines and there really is no way to release it because those machines don't come back in like all that often, so you can't make these kinds of changes. There's a lot of interesting stuff about that. Okay, so I think this. Sorry, let me build and run our tests. But I think this code is going to work. I didn't run all the tests. Maybe I should run all the tests. There are not a lot of tests right now. Most of what we have is a UI and not a lot of back-end stuff. So this is what we get. Excellent. Excellent. Which means that this may not need to exist as such. Let's extract. We're going to refactor this code. So this currently works. I'm going to change this into a constructor created read-only object that is a field. So I let ReSharper do that for me, but I basically moved a variable that was declared here up into a field, and I'm initializing it in the constructor. Because of that, what I can do is this. I can go into each one of these methods that we've got here and remove the object, and instead call it like that. I can remove it from here and call it here as well. And I can remove it from this one. So now, before each test, it is going to create a new instance of this. So the code has not really changed, even though it changed. It should run the same way. So, okay, good. Green. So I didn't mess it up. So we pulled this up so that it's up at this higher level. So why did I do this? Well, a couple of reasons. First off, we should get that code reuse anyway of having this created at the top and just store it in a field, because we don't need the system under test to be created in each one of these individually, because we could just put it up here. But there's another reason, and that is that we can inject this. So, how are we going to do that? Well, first thing I'm going to do is this. Figure out the base set. Base set should. We're going to change the handler set to be a base set. So we're just going to rename that. Handlers in all of these is going to rename. Handlers is going to rename to items. Okay. Okay. Just found mock auto mocker today. Seems awesome if you need to test a class with several dependencies. Oh, nice, Twitchloft. So it'll just it will just automatically mock every one of the every one of the dependencies in the constructor, I assume. With the new C# tuple, it's really easy to reuse simple methods now for test setup. You're a heretic because this style of mock-heavy testing is the norm, and you're a complete rebel. So I will say I'm a big fan of the tuple syntax that was added in C#7 with the value tuple type. I think it is fantastic and is really, really useful. And you just you do hand-rolled fakes. So I also do hand-rolled fakes if it is a simple implementation that I need. But if all I need is a literal mock that is going to do nothing and I don't care about its results and I'm not looking at the value, I am a big fan of a mock for that because I didn't have to create a type. Tuples for all your constructors. No, Icy Black Deep. We don't do that here. Base set of iMessage handler. If this compiles, I'm going to run it, make sure the tests are still passing. We're doing this refactoring a step at a time just to be careful, because at any point we could absolutely just break these tests, and we need to make sure that they're still functioning as we expect them to. Okay, so that's our T. Okay, before I can do that, let's do this. Where T is an iMessage handler. Will it let me get away with that? No. It is one though. Cannot convert message handler set to a. Is it? Oh, because it doesn't know that it's always the T. That's why it is the T, but it could be a different T. So that's why it could be a different T. So that's why I can't get away with cheating that way. So I'm gonna need this if this is gonna work. I need this to be passed in. This is not. This is a base. This is the base set. Okay. This can't run as it stands because we're not passing it in. See, it's funny you're talking about the people that don't mock things, but I will say that I do both. I do fakes and mocks. I like both of them. I think they both have scenarios where they work better depending on what it is you're trying to check out, and I use both of them. I think they're both good. Ooh, it can't T. Ooh. Well, that might be the spot where we hit our roadblock. I may have just hit our roadblock in our refactoring here. because it needs to have an instance of that. So if I make this not abstract, then we could just test one, because we could just make a new one. So I could go this route, where we could still get some reuse on this. I'm just trying to see what kind of reuse we can get. The challenge I'm running into is creating the item collection. Yeah, so I think what I was sort of leaning towards, that's why I was talking about making it not abstract anymore, is we could test the base class and then just not worry about it if the implementations don't actually do anything, which will save us a lot. So that's kind of what I was thinking. Make the test class abstract with overridden implementation for add item. Yeah, we could absolutely do that if we make the... If we make this the base set. I don't know that I'd call it add item, maybe like get item or something like that. Keep it abstract and just create a test class in the test project. Oh, that's true, I could, yeah. Yep, I guess we could just make a test version of that up here. So let's make a class fake set. Maybe it's just test set. It is a base set. Does it matter what the object is? Guess not. Yeah, it has actually been a long... Like, I don't think I've read Working Effectively with Legacy Code in about a decade. It is a fantastic book, though. It has been a long time. Maybe it's longer. Maybe it's not. It's got to be. It's got to be at least a decade. Okay, so I guess this is the one we'll use. This will be the test set. The current document, replace that with that, please. Replace all usage of dot handlers with dot items in the current set, in the current file, please. Replace all instances of this type with string in this file. Which I guess if I'm mocking the string, I don't need to really deal with that, do I? I don't think I need to mock a string. Item 1. So that'll be item 1. And there it is again. Replace all instances of that. And then I'm going to duplicate item 1 as item 2. Get rid of that. And now copy that to the clipboard. Replace all instances of handler 2 with item 2. And chat, what kind of stuff are you yelling at me right now? Test set is better. How to create a seam when there isn't one. Does it matter that it's a value type now? A string's not a value type. String's a reference type. String's still a reference, Simon. We should have referential integrity on that. That should still remain the same. I guess the test will tell us if it's not. That's part of the reason why we checked same instead of... Oh, right, I can't run these here. I need to have the... Because I made it abstract. At which point we, like, since we're just testing this one instead of passing it in... Let's run this and see what we get. GUID is a value type, Simon. Strings are... So Brutal Sweet is correct. Strings are weird, though it should still be a reference type. 8. Oh, whoops. Derp. Forgot we were going to make that abstract. I made that protected. GUID. That's what I said, Kevin. GUID. GUID. One syllable. You can take your GUID. 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 Look, here's how it's spelled. GUID. G-U-I-D. Thanks, Icy Black Deep. Okay, I apparently missed one of the mocks. Yeah, right there. Whoops. Whoops. Oh, thanks, Simon. Yes. That's exactly what we want to do. We globally unique identifier. Yes, is a globally unique identifier. What are you talking about? How dare you say GUID? No, we don't need to jump into the tabs versus spaces or anything like that either. We're just kidding. We're just kidding, folks. Just kidding. Okay. So now that we have this one that tests that base type, if I can make it so that the other type, this one, is just this, I'm not willing to test this class. Not willing to do it. Not worth it. That being said, if I really want to check the other one, I could do some tests of different types instead of just doing the string. I could try something else in our test class, but I am not willing to do this one, because that's just not worth the test. The ATM machine and your personal identification number, your automatic teller machine. Yep. Ah, yeah. That one doesn't have adding and removing yet, but this does. Goodbye. Goodbye, code. You are no longer needed. Plugins. Items. There we go. Recursive acronyms. Yes, I do like those. Like GNU is not usable. I mean, is not Unix. Anybody catch that? So the long and the short of it was you have a test for generic base and get derivatives for free now. Yes, exactly. So we're getting the derivative versions for free. That being said, if we wanted to check all the types, there are some ways that we could do that as well, adding it so that the tests, include those types. But again, I'm not going to check all the individual types right now, as that it'd be some obscure cases where this didn't work, and I don't think it's worth the time that it would take to test that. Okay, so the plugin set stuff I'm not going to commit yet. I'm going to do the first commit with extracting the base set. Did I rename the file on that one? I did not. So I'm going to do this first. Since I didn't... I guess I could git move the file, but I'm not going to. I'm just going to do it as 2 separate commits, because laziness. Where's rename file? There we go. Just to confirm we didn't break anything, we're going to run the tests again. Alrighty. There we go. Mix test name. Tiny commit. Okay, so for these plugin stuff, we created a new plugin interface that's going to do that. That's the plugin set. And then this is the implementation of it, which again, we managed to make it so our implementations are basically nothing, so yay. Now we need to actually wire these up to do something. So for that, I want to jump over into here, and I want to... We're going to do another one of these because I haven't extracted it out yet. And that's okay-ish. Initialize plugins. Plugin set, which is going to get us a plugin set. And this is going to be... This is not going to pull from services. Provider gets services. This needs to have... the iData store. I think this needs the data store. If you rename the file in VS or move it and delete source in VS, then it... Yeah, Simon, I know that it'll do that. The annoyance is that I want ReSharper to do it for me, because I don't want to do it in, like... Because it's slightly... I guess... The weird part is it's hard to get to the help, like, stuff from Visual Studio when ReSharper has overridden it. That's the problem. Initialize the plugins, but I don't have the types. So I can either ask for the data store at this point. Initialize it with a new list of plugins that we're going to pull out like this. Okay, there we go. To do, pull from those places. As soon as you change the file content, it messes up. You also only see it when you stage. Yeah, so if you take a look, Simon, it was a rename. So it's right there. It's treated as a move. The trick is Git does not have a way when staging to say that it was a move, as far as I know, which is an annoyance. Like, I think it can only do it based on an auto detect. I don't think it can be told, hey, this one was a move after you've done the change. So, yep, silliness. One of the things that bugs me in Git is there's no way to be like, hey, when committing, this is a move, not a, like, I did not delete this and recreate a new file somewhere else. Like, it's the same file. Let me just tell you about it. I just want to tell you. Just let me tell you. And it doesn't have a way to do that. Okay, so we're going to need to read the... So we need to read the file system to be able to tell what's in this folder. And then we also need to check our database to see whether or not it's available. So let's... read the plugins folder to get current plugins. Check the database for existing info about each found plugin. That sounds right. Yep, and the auto detect is based on the content. Yes, it's how closely it matches the current content. So as long as you didn't significantly change the content, it will treat it as a move, which is why I did those 2 quick separate commits, so that we could fix that. Git is great because it's such a simple system. Git is bad because it's such a simple... Yes, exactly, Fuel Stable. Yeah, what if it's in the database and not on disk? Then I would say that we are... so my thought was don't load it, like don't show it. If they don't have it there, don't make it appear. But I guess we should cross... we should probably cross-join these. You're right. Read the plugins folder to get current plugins. Okay, so what we'll do then is this. We'll grab the database one first. To do pull all plugin info from database. Three states of let's say create missing plugin, create plugin info for new plugins, maybe unknown plugins. Attach plugin to its info. Mark missing set plugin info as missing if it has no if plugin folder missing. This is not explicit, it's implicit. So we likely won't actually do code for that. We'll likely just have a property that indicates the state of the fact that it's missing by us not having associated a plugin with it. So essentially it starts out with none, and unless you give it, it starts off with a null object. So it would have the null object, like the missing object plugin, and when we set one, so we'll null object pattern that. Let's see. What is database not this? Flag it as missing if it's in the database but not on the disk, and flag it as new or unconfigured if it's on disk but not in the database. Yep, that's what I'm doing, Simon. Also going to want to do an assembly version compare to check configuration compatible. Yeah, probably yes. Was also wondering whether or not we wanted to version our API. which is a thing we're going to have to get into eventually deciding on. Was also thinking if you wanted to do validated plugins, you could ship a default database with a hash of the nupkeg or assembly for the plugin and mark it as validated if it has the match the one on disk. So my plan for that is, so first off, the bot itself is going to have its own database and data storage, so that we have a way of storing that. It does not necessarily have to be on disk, because we are going to expose a config setting for them to be able to change the connection string. I don't know whether or not we're actually going to put that in the... I don't know if we're going to actually put that in the UI or not. Certainly not yet. But if they wanted to change where they're storing it or share it between programs, they technically can, though that seems not recommended, because we are just using a LightDB for this. If a plugin wants access to the LightDB, we're going to allow them to just request it, and the IOC container is going to give it to it so it can store in that database. I don't know how we're going to protect the data from a plugin messing with the other data in the bot. We'll have to think about that. But the what we may do for data security's sake is actually have two databases, one that has the one that is for plugins to use and one that is for the general application, so that someone's plugin can't get the rest of the bot information. So I haven't thought about that one yet. We might give them a separate one, like, and just not allow them access to the first one, essentially not making it generally available in the IOC container in some way. We'll have to figure that out, because you can do essentially you can build multiple containers. Essentially, you can scope what is available at any given time. So there are ways to do that with IOC containers. So we'll have to think about that at some point. But that's kind of the idea. So, all stuff to think about. So, yeah. Okay, well then, it is about time for me to wrap up, because I still have some other work I got to do for my clients. So Carpe, welcome. Thanks for that follow. Much appreciated. Welcome to the stream. If anyone else is in here and has not clicked the follow button yet, please do so. And don't take off just yet, everyone, because I want to talk about upcoming stuff. So first off, I want to make sure that we are... so I want to get this bot to the point where it's like ready, that like I don't feel like I need to do this as my on-stream project every single time, so that we can work on some of our other projects that we want to work on here. We will be back on Saturday for our regular Saturday stream, which starts at about the same time we started today, which is 1 o'clock my time, so 3.5 hours before now. So just if you look at your clock and subtract, that's what time the streams start on Saturdays. We stream here on Mondays, Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays. That being said, I usually miss one a week. That is roughly my average, so don't be surprised if we do miss a stream now and again. That's fairly normal here. Astros fan, welcome. Thanks for that follow, much appreciated. The streams, we do... there is a low undertone during the last part of the stream. Well, I don't know what it is, but thanks for the heads up, Renee. I'll check the audio and see if there's some problem before our next stream. So other things I want to note. If you have not yet, do check out our Discord. If you're interested in working on some of our projects. Brain! Awesome timing, and thank you for the Twitch Prime sub. Hopefully you enjoyed the stream, and yes, you get another egg. And can derp up the emotes. Hang on, now I want to do this. So we are going to be what was I saying? Yeah, so if you are interested in contributing to our projects, do check them out on GitHub, as we are going to be wanting more people to contribute specifically to this project, as we think it is an awesome bot project, and we're hoping that we can make it modular so that, like, when everybody's saying, oh yes, there's all these streamers doing these bots, my hope is that we can get it to the point where they're not necessarily building this bot, but maybe the custom stuff they're building is like modules for this bot, so for their own stream even, so custom to their stuff, but you know, they're still able to build on stream so that we, you know, can essentially community drive some more. So if you are interested in helping us out, go check it out at github.com/devchatter. We are open to contributions and figuring out what that process is all going to look like. So we're in the early stages right now on everything, as you can tell. And we are hoping that it is something that you all find interesting, because we do. And you can also check out archives of all of our past streams over on YouTube. And then I'm going to toss links to Twitter and other stuff like that out there as well. You can find all this information down below also. Let's see. So, with that being said, I think I'm going to rate us over somewhere else. But before we do, I'm going to roll our credits. And if people do have questions about anything, feel free to jump in and ask them. But I want to run these first. So I want to make sure that I thank everybody who helped out making this stream awesome, whether you were just one of the chatters or whether you are, say, someone that cheered. So Icybeard, thank you for cheering on the stream. I want to thank our moderators for helping out. That is me and some bots. I want to thank all these wonderful people who clicked that follow button today. They will now get nice notifications and be able to see our stream in the future. So if you are one of those awesome people to click that follow button, thank you very much. I appreciate it, and I look forward to seeing you on the next stream. And I want to make sure that I thank TwitchLove and Brain for the resub and sub respectively. So thank you very much everyone for hanging out today. Hopefully you enjoyed this stream as much as I did. I thought we had some really good discussions about stuff and wrote some awesome code. So I will see all of you on Saturday for our next stream starting at about 1 p.m. Eastern Time. That is about 1700 UTC. And hopefully from that you can translate to your time zone. You can also look down below the stream, and in the panels below it should show our schedule, so converted into whatever your time zone is set for on Twitch, and we will see you then. So I'm going to toss us on the outro and rate us on over, so do stick around and hang out for more coding content. Take care and happy coding, everyone. Bye, Brain.